In the week's biggest news, Nepal witnessed a massive Gen Z protest against KPOL government over corruption and social media ban. Angry demonstrators set fire to parliament, several ministers' residences, eventually prompting Prime Minister KPOL to resign.
He said he had his hand on the pulse and he knew when there was popular discontent. Those his very words. And this time he did not know. Perhaps he got overtaken by the algorithm, the new world created by social media, where you have to have new skills and new alertness. And he is an old world politician. Politicians are bad. All political leaders are of the same ilk. So that was the foundation. The trigger was the suspension of selected about 25 social media platforms.
What the young in Nepal are calling out is politicians' kids who are, who have access to vacations abroad, who have Christmas trees with Louis Vuitton boxes, lined up. So a lot of it starts off and with this comparison of look at these politicians' kids, where they've gone, what they're doing, what they're capable of, and look at us, where are we? The roads, the corruption, the houses falling. So there is this intense kind of barrage of, and especially on TikTok, of actually Gen Z going after Gen Z.
Patriotic Indians are saying, see, India is so great under Modi ji that this has happened in Sri Lanka, in Bangladesh, in Nepal, Pakistan, but India is safe. Nothing's happened in India. So this friend of mine, let me just call him S. S says, dude, it's happening. We're just too big. It doesn't happen all at once.
No country is a utopia. No country ever will be a utopia, but you have to keep striving for utopia.
Right.
So the corruption as an issue doesn't have that much of, let's say, virality in the minds of the people. For example, there was a recent clip which was very fascinating. Ashok Gehlot was going to meet some people from his constituency, and there was some random guy who comes up ki, sir, aap ye gaadi chodo, ye Innova mat lo, aap Fortuner lo.
Corruption is an issue. It's always been an issue, I think, in Nepal and in India. But this quality of comparison of what we don't have, I wonder if this generation is going to feel that more strongly than any other generation before that, purely because comparisons come to them in their phone.
We also use Gen Z in a very casual sense, but if you look at the marketing people on social media, their only aim is how to land a helicopter on the subconscious of Gen Z. So they want to capture it. Even if you look at the political marketing, like look at the pages of BJP, Aam Aadmi Party, Congress. So everybody is making content which is hilarious, but they are very specific to Gen Z.
Welcome to Chota Hafta. Now, Chota Hafta is but a small, chota version of a complete weekly podcast, Newslaundry Hafta. The Newslaundry Hafta is where you get the week's news, what made the headlines, what didn't make the headlines, but the full version is available to subscribers only. And I don't mean YouTube subscribers, although YouTube subscribers are also very welcome, we're very grateful to you, but also to Newslaundry subscribers, the paying subscribers who pay to keep news free. So you can also become a paying subscriber by clicking the subscription link. Now, what do you get if you're a paying subscriber? You get access to all our paywall content, all interviews, podcasts, and importantly, you get access to a full unedited Hafta, where you not only get to hear the week's news, but you get to hear the Newslaundry editors' positions on matters. You get to see their biases, what are their prejudices. It's an exercise in transparency while also informing you, and we have a few quips and jokes and agreements and disagreements thrown in. So listen to the full Hafta, subscribe to Newslaundry, and pay to keep news free. Here we go.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़ लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of NL Hafta. We are recording this at 11 in the morning on the 12th of September, Friday, and as we're recording, Vice President being sworn in. Let me introduce the panel and tell you who will be joining us later before Manisha gives us the headlines. Raman Kirpal
Hello.
in the studio. Hi, Raman sir.
Hi.
Anand Vardhan
Hello.
in the studio. Manisha is home because she, while training for the rhythmic gymnastics team of Indian for Olympics, has had a terrible fall of the ankles. We have very multi-talented people in office. And before the headlines, Manisha, I want to make an appeal for subscriptions. You have all been very kind, very wonderful in topping up our NL Sena projects and paying to keep news free. There's a QR code flashing while I'm saying this, so do become subscribers. The Chota Hafta is outside the paywall, the complete Hafta is behind the paywall. So to get all our information, our articles, our interviews and videos, unedited, you will have to be a subscriber. The free version is a shorter version. But just want to point out that whenever we have a political investigation or anything else, it gets topped up, whether it's 5 lakh, 8 lakh, 10 lakh. Now that we are doing an investigation into how the privileged have taken over public spaces as opposed to slums, it is one of the most slowest top-ups, because we are talking about how guards outside bungalows, they've taken over public spaces, cars have taken over public spaces. So when we are doing that, flower pots. Now, because these are investigating, plush colonies, it is the slowest contribution increase that I have seen, which proves the point that many have made, including Anand here, that the subscription model only works as long as we are investigating politicians, because then we don't get political ads. But the moment we start investigating people like us, then suddenly the contributions dry up. So those of you who think that is a terrible idea, and we should not have that kind of partisan nature to investigations, here's a QR code. Contribute to the urban takeover by privileged Indians. Before we start talking about slum demolition, because they are illegal, let's see how many of our constructions outside our homes and colonies are illegal that we have done ourselves. Pay to keep news free. Last week, contributions were not very healthy. Sorry to say. Get one of your friends, family, whoever to contribute. Because coming soon, Bihar, there'll be a lot of money going around for political ads. And I'd hate to be tempted, so make sure I'm well fed. So one is the political context with Mr. Oli at the center. And the second is the discontent that has led to this, hideous violence on the street. Is there a background to that as well? Not just to this protest, but to protests in general?
By the very announcement, what the Gen Z representatives, people who consider themselves the Gen Z representatives, would put forward themselves as the Gen Z representatives. They said one is good governance, one is corruption, most importantly, corruption in high places, and corruption that was not really being tackled by the system, even though the journalists were very, very capable over the last few years in digging up the muck. They were great muckrakers, but the state system, the courts, the investigation, the Attorney General's office, nobody took it to a denouement. So all of that was the base level disenchantments in the whole country, which is not being expressed because the politicians had a hold on their own individual parties, meaning the political leaders, Sherbadur Deuba in the Congress, the largest party, KP Oli of the UML, and a poor third is Mr. Pushpakamal Dahal Prachanda, as he is known, of the Maoist party. And then, so people were watching the shenanigans going on, and not everybody was equally at fault, but they were all tarred with the same brush. All politicians are bad. We were and we still are trying to move on forward towards a progressive society on the basis of the two words. 1990 Constitution gave us civil and political rights. It's on the basis of that Nepal became an open society. The 2015 Constitution gave us inclusion for a country as diverse as Nepal. So Nepal, even today, has a possibility of being an exemplar for South Asia. The only country in South Asia which doesn't have a death penalty. The only country in South Asia where the Supreme Court passes its judgment in the national language.
But I found this really funny comment on Twitter by somebody said that we should thank Nehru for setting up IITs and IIMs, and then we should thank quota guys. So Gen Z in India also, I think so much of our attention is to crack an exam and crack a life for yourself by getting an education, that we don't see these things, and like we see revolutions or whatever, little protests around exams, students' issues, because there is that hope of making it, which India offers in our defense as a country. We do offer our youth a hope to kind of crack something and go somewhere. But if that starts to be taken away, the chance that yes, you can crack an exam and reach somewhere. And if increasingly we don't pay attention to restlessness among the youth, and I've been meeting so many over the last 5 years in smaller towns where there is a real sense of hopelessness about like, what is our future?
Who is being held responsible for the 19 youth killed in the firing? Is the police commissioner? Is it Oli directly? Has anyone been able to track down where did the order come from to shoot to kill?
Field accountability lies with the police officer who ordered the shooting of live bullets as the demonstrators began to enter the parliament premises, far out of proportion, tragically far out of proportion from the threat that was possibly there by these unarmed demonstrators. But I believe as Prime Minister and the Home Minister from the Nepali Congress, Ramesh Lekhak, they were responsible ultimately for what the government did.
Now we have our next guest joining us, but before that, I want to remind you again about our interview with Manu Joseph and how you can win or get 5 signed copies of his book. One person won't get all 5, but 5 people will get. Because a lot of what you've written in this book, let our imagination go wild, maybe 100, 200 years from now, could trigger a revolution. What you're saying, why the poor don't kill us, even though they've been given such a raw deal. I can imagine a bunch of people saying, you know what Manu is saying is so true. Let's call them Josephists, like Marxists. And don't you think it would be deeply ironic if your book triggered...
Call him Manuwadi.
Manu,
yeah.
You can get 5 signed copies, and one person won't get all 5, of this book. If you have to scan this QR code, you gift a subscription to someone you know, a friend, family, relative, and you mail me abhinandansekhri@gmail.com of the person you've gifted it to, under what email. You get a 20% discount, and you'll also get a signed copy of this book. Or if you're a non-subscriber, subscribe, you'll get a 20% discount, and the first 5 who do that will get a signed copy of Why the Poor Don't Kill Us. We'll get it to you. You have to mail me abhinandansekhri@gmail.com. The first 5 will get that copy. Explain your thesis on such movements, the desirability or the inevitability of them.
So there are 2-3 points about that. First is the whole idea of Gen Z, which I find a very, it's the word which doesn't define exactly what it's trying to define, because Gen Z can also be, in the popular sense, we use Gen Z as some privileged people who are very lazy, who are into Netflix and chill and everything. But as I argue in the piece, that Gen Z are also people who are living in Rohtak or who are living in Rajasthan or some town, and their aspiration is very different from the aspiration of the Gen Z that we use this particular kind of a word. So that was my initial point. It's as useless a word like netizen, which doesn't like a lot of media use it to define that netizen think that. So those edits were being made about Nepo babies. But the funny thing was, that ironic thing was that those the material for those edit was given by.
बस मुफ्त में इतना ही मिलेगा. For the full uncut podcast, subscribe to Newslaundry and pay to keep news free. The best way to listen to the Hafta and indeed all our podcasts is through the Newslaundry app. You can download the app by clicking on the links given in the show notes. So do download our app and get the best podcast experience. And also pay for news and support a new news media ecosystem that Newslaundry is trying to encourage, where we are accountable to you because we run on contributions that you make. We don't take government ads, we don't take corporations ads, so that news serves the public, because when the public pays, the public is served. Subscribe to Newslaundry, click on the link in the show notes below, and proudly say, I pay to keep news free.